Hi and welcome to a new episode of the Crochet Along With Me vlog series, in which I invite you to pick up your crochet hook or some knitting needles and join me as I share with you what I've been making, what I've finished during the past month, or in this case 2 months, and I tell you about some plans for the future. I'm Andrea and I'm the designer and video creator here on this channel, and I hope you will enjoy today's episode. If you opened last week's email, you probably saw that I mentioned there a new system that I want to set up for organizing my time and my projects for this year, and I said that I would share it with you. So stay tuned to the end of this episode. I will show you how that looks and how it works. But before that, I would like to read a comment from the previous episode. And if you leave me a comment sharing what you're working on and what you've been making during the past month, I might read your comment in the next episode. So Fiona C1 said, "The blog post on hooks is amazing, so comprehensive and useful. I look forward to more content." Thank you, Fiona. And I am working on more content. As you can see that I published quite a few videos during the past 2 months, even if it wasn't a vlog episode. So you may have noticed that in December I did not publish a vlog. That is because of many reasons. Some of them have to do with what was going on in the world at the time. At the end of November and beginning of December, we had elections in Romania, and we had to vote many times. Some of the elections got cancelled. It was a big mess, and I was not in the proper mental place to be able to speak publicly with people, so I didn't film a vlog. I was just way too angry. So now you have the opportunity to see the projects that I've finished or started and made in November and December of 2024. What I'm doing right now is I'm working on a very basic sock. It will have an afterthought heel, and the reason why I'm knitting instead of crocheting is because all my crochet projects need some thinking. So I don't have anything that's just very basic, no thinking involved at the moment. So you'll have to watch me make a sock while I show you the rest of the project. I started this project right at the end of December, but I would like to share first some finished objects with you from the things that you saw in the November episode. I think I was working on this while filming that vlog episode. And this is a scarf. It's quite long, as you can see. It was supposed to be the New Year's Eve scarf design, but working with this yarn was quite difficult, so it took me a long time to finish the sample, and then I didn't have time to film the tutorial, write the pattern, and so on. So it's going to be a pattern for next year. I think Sparkle is in for every year, and people will still be wanting to make scarves. This is a very basic corner to corner design. As you can see from the diagonals, these are created by working corner to corner from this corner and then going all the way to the other side. I really like how this came out, especially after blocking. Before blocking, it was quite rolling in on itself like this, so that was not fun. So this is one project. Another thing that you saw me working on last episode was this sweater. Now it's finished. I wove in the ends just a few days ago, and as you can see, it has satin sleeves, which means that there is a sleeve cap here, so the sleeve doesn't go like this from the shoulder, it goes like this as our arms tend to do. So it's much more comfortable to wear. It fits me well. I didn't put it on because then I couldn't show you the rest of it. So the back is simple. The neckline and the cuffs have this very elastic ribbing that I showed you in a video tutorial that I published in December, I think. And the bottom has honeycomb stitch because I started this a very long time ago. And yeah, I think I started it in 2023 after I made a cowl and a pair of gloves with the same lace pattern, fingerless gloves. And I'm working on the pattern for the fingerless gloves right now, and I will publish that and the cowl pattern as well. I don't know if there will be a pattern for the sweater. It's complicated to grade this kind of sleeve for all the sizes, and I don't yet have enough experience in doing that. Maybe I will make a plain sweater with a simple stitch pattern so that I can do the grading for the sleeves. And once I have that, if I have the numbers, then I can add the lace. Maybe. But that's not planned for now. It's just a sweater. It's made of a very soft yarn, and this yarn felts, so I will have to wash this by hand when I have to wash it, which is what you have to take care of the things you make and make sure that you don't shrink them when you wash them because they're precious. Another thing that you saw in the last episode was this cardigan. I think I had finished one sleeve and I was working on the other sleeve, and I finished it, but I didn't remove the stitch markers because I want to still have the track of how many rows I created for the various elements. It turns out that I had enough yarn to just make a short regular cardigan even without the orange. But I don't mind that I use the orange. I like it. It's very soft and it's perfect for cuffs here. So as you can see, it's quite long. And I added buttons. I made a video tutorial about adding these buttons, and I will edit it and post it in a few days or weeks, I don't know. And as you can see, I added some mosaic to the bottom as well to finish with the orange. And the sad part about this whole project is, as much as I love it and I loved working on it, the sleeves are too narrow. I don't know why. I think my arms became bigger during the past 2 months, and so I can only wear this without anything underneath. Otherwise I can't wear it. So it will have to be a cardigan for the warmer weather. So late spring, summer, and early autumn. But as I was working on this, I just felt the need to start another one. So I rushed through it a bit to finish it. And I did start another one in yellow. But I will tell you more about this once I finish with the finished objects. So I'll leave this here for now, and then I will show you. Something else that I finished, I think in December, is this hat. It's made of 100% merino wool. It's superwash, so I can throw it in the wash when I'm done with it. And it has this very elastic brim on it, which means that it sits on the head without, being too loose or falling off. And I intended this to, I wanted to make it in October, but I was not able to finish it until December. And I also filmed the ribbing tutorial, which I talked about earlier and published it, so you can make one of these now because I wrote up the pattern and published it in December. So I made a second one to fix the crown shaping, because if you look at this one, it's a bit too small. The crown is too small, and so you get this puckering at the middle. So I had to rework the stitch counts for my size and then graded it to 3 sizes of crown, which means that it will fit better on the smaller heads and the bigger heads. And yeah, I published the pattern on the blog, and you can make one for yourself. You can skip the double brim if you want to. You can just make it a simple brim. You can make it slouchy like this, or you can double it up. So it's snug. And I think the double brim is great for cold ears. Of course, if you want to make it in a single layer, you can also skip the ribbing and then add some lining. And I created a tutorial on how to add lining to hats, and it's now on the channel. It's a very useful skill to know how to add some lining to your hats so that you can wear them in windy situations. So I know that this hat looks weird when it's just flat like this, but it's a functional piece. And I am planning on making more different shapes, and I will tell you a bit more about those plans towards the end. While I was playing with the hats and I didn't feel like making anything else, I also made an elf hat. So most of it is made of wool, including the brim, and the pom-pom is made of acrylic that I had lying around, because what's the point of using up nice wool on a pom-pom? So this one stands up on its own. And you can fold up the brim, or you can wear it like this, where it's just slouchy in the back or in the front. So I'm planning on writing this up for next winter and making a red version too. So this will be a Santa or an elf hat pattern. Also with short rows, but the short rows here are much longer. So this is the crown in this hat, and it could be longer. And for this one, I wanted to see what happens if you mirror the short rows. So you have the longest short row, and then shorter, shorter, shorter. Then you have a long one, and then you have short and then longer. So there are 2 short rows that touch each other, the shortest ones. And it turns out that it creates triangles. Who knew? So now there are these points on the edge here where you switch to just full rows, and I don't know if I like that. I will leave it like this for this hat because it looks pretty, like Christmas trees, and in the future I will know that I should just repeat how the short rows are made from the shortest to the longest if I want to prevent the formation of these bumps in the shape. But I quite like it as it is. And I just made a simple brim because if you fold it up like this and you put it on your head, there will be some pressure from 2 layers of Tunisian crochet here pushing on your head, so you don't actually need an elastic brim for this. It was a nice experiment though, and it's DK weight yarn, so it's a nice way to play with the numbers and see what you get. to grade the different sizes. And I have one more finished object, well, two, to show you from December. These are some woodland slippers. This is not my pattern. I made these in a few days while on vacation at the Baltic Sea. They like to roll up into themselves, and they are not my size, so these are for my hubby. And they look much nicer on his feet. I used 2 strands of 8-ply sock yarn held together. One of them is this color. I bought some yarn up there in the local yarn shop. And yeah, I really like how they came out. And I like this mixing of variegated sock yarns. And of course they are not at all the same because I used 2 variegated sock yarns, and yeah, it's a nice way to play with colors and to make something fun and vibrant for the dark days. So now we can get to the whips. The same yarn I started the sock. I didn't finish it. Well, I finished it once, but it was too short because I followed some guide online that said that for my size of foot you should make the this part 21 centimeters, but that's wrong. So I finished the sock and it was way too short, so I undid it, and now I'm going to have to add some more. But this is just the toe shaping. And what I'm wearing now, these are made by my grandma. They are more like slippers than socks, so perfect for wearing inside the house. I'm also making some socks for my hubby, and I'm almost finished with the second one. I started these in December as a Christmas gift. Guess what? Knitting is slow, especially when you want to have a tight gauge so that the fabric is dense enough. We use these socks just for sleeping, for warming up in bed, so maybe these will get worn outside, but maybe not. I hope not, because it's a lot of work and they're not that pretty, just functional. And yeah, you know what I was working on. I will just make a long tube and then I will add the heel at the end. I want to try that heel construction. Okay, so these are my sock whips, and I said that I would show you the cardigan that I started based on this one. It's the same pattern, but because of the issue with the underarm, the arm area, I said that I would make it bigger. So I've had this yellow yarn in my stash for so long, and I wanted to make a cardigan with bees or honeycomb or something like that. And if you've watched my previous vlogs, then you know what's coming because there is mosaic here. And because I don't have enough yarn to make the whole cardigan out of this yellow. And I didn't bring it with me, but I have some purple yarn that I'm going to use to add to the arm, to the sleeves, and to the bottom edge. So this is what I have so far. A lot of ends, of course. I only weave in the ends at the end because there is no point of weaving them in when you sometimes decide to frog everything and then you have to deal with finding all the ends. So I prefer to just leave the ends until the end of the project. So for this one, I increased a bit more and I added the same amount of stitches at the underarm, but instead of decreasing in the sleeve right after I started the underarm like I did with this one, which I think was the shoe, I left the underarm gusset long and wide for much longer, and then I started to decrease. For the body section, as you can see here, I started to decrease after the first 3 rows, and I created a triangle gusset here, and this will help with the fit of the cardigan because I don't want it to be way too loose. And after I reach the waist, I will add a few increases to make it big enough to go over my hips without any tension. So this one fits okay, but it's just a tube. There is no shaping here. And when I wear it, it's quite stiff here in the hip area because it's so long. It goes beyond my hips, and there I would need some more space to move around in. So I will do that with this one, and then I will add the mosaic, and you know what's coming. I will use the bee mosaic to add to the bottom edge. For right now, I don't know exactly how long I will go with this, but if it's as long as this one, then it's always good. What else? I'm using the same weight of yarn, so it's sock yarn with the 5mm hook, and I think I can put it on. As you can see, it's a bit wider here in the bust area, and it will go in a bit, and the sleeve fits even with something underneath, so it has enough ease that I can wear it with another thick layer underneath, which is great for winter because I like to layer. So when you make something that is intended for wearing as a layer over other things, consider the ease that you add to your stuff. If you like things to fit closely to your body, if you want to add another layer underneath, you will not be able to unless you leave some ease in the measurements of the final garment. And of course, if you're like me and your measurements go like this all the time, you have to also account for that and add some extra ease to accommodate the changing measurements. So over the next month I will continue to work on this, and I will start writing up this pattern. I will tell you a bit more about these in a little while when I have a proper plan in place. But I'm just going to tell you that these are intended as part of a bigger project. Here's another whip that I showed you in the last episode, if you remember, the dress that I'm making. Now we have a full sleeve. I made a long piece of ribbing so that I don't have to create decreases here. I could have made the decreases, but I just didn't want to figure it out. And it's easier to just work straight in this pattern and then add a big cuff. I made some progress in the body, as you can see, and started the second sleeve. I wanted to use up the yarn that was attached here because it was quite annoying to carry it with me while I was working on the sleeve. So I made the sleeve, and then I made this piece here, and then I started the second sleeve, and I learned to work with the magic loop, they call it, but it's just circular knitting needles, and then you flip the work as you make each row, each half row, and it works much better than trying to work with circular needles with the short cords, or I don't have short needles. You would need the short tips to just continue working in the round. There's no point. I'm quite faster if I just do this. And you don't have to flip the whole project all around. So the project stays in the lap, and then I just work like this. One thing that I forgot to mention here in this project is that I could have also worked in the round for the sleeves, but I noticed that it's much more difficult to work in the round when you have a cabled hook for something as narrow as a sleeve. So what I did was I picked up the stitches and then worked flat for a few rows by using this magic loop method. So you have the possibility to have both parts of the sleeve on the hook, in this case, on one row. And then when the piece got long enough, I was able to just open it up and work straight in one piece. And I ordered some Tunisian crochet hooks that are double-ended, and they're much shorter, and they have to come sometime soon. So in the future, maybe I'll be able to make some narrow pieces with the double-ended hooks. But now I think this works well for sleeves. Of course, for knitting, you can use this method with the 2 needles, and yeah, it's a bit different. So I only work on this when I can't work on anything else. It doesn't require much thinking, but it does require counting and keeping track on which row you're on. But the stitch pattern is easy, and I want to make a Tunisian crochet version. I think it will be a cardigan though, because I don't want to work in the round. I have 400 more grams of this yarn besides this, so it should be enough to make a pretty decent long dress. Some other whips that I have to show you. This I started in November, and it's a half pie crescent shawl. It's knit and it has beads, and it doesn't fit on this cable very well, so I bought a very long cable for my interchangeable needles, and this is also compatible with the Tunisian crochet hooks, so that's great. This is from Knit Pro. So this is supposedly a 1.5 meter cable, but when you buy cables, you have to keep in mind that they actually do not measure the number that it says on the package, because the people who create these cables measure them together with the needles. So you have to see that this will measure 1.5 meters with the needles. So I guess they assume that you work in the round and you never have the magic loop, but I mostly work with the magic loop. Anyway, just keep that in mind if you order interchangeable cords like this. I recommend you get the swivel ones, where the end moves free from the cable, and that you keep in mind that they are much shorter. So this is not 1.5 meters. This is 1.5 meters minus the double the length of this needle. And this measures 12 centimeters. So the cable measures 126 centimeters. And when you just add one Tunisian crochet hook to the end, which measures about 15 centimeters, then together they will measure 140 centimeters. So I will use this for this project. And yeah, I hope to finish it soon, but I think I have about 40 rows of almost 400 stitches to make, and I'm using some sock yarn that I hand dyed with mushrooms. And I have a bit more of sock yarn with a bit of a gradient in a similar color. This is also hand dyed by me with mushrooms, and it's not the same sock yarn, so this one is a bit shinier, but what can I do? I wanted to use yarn from my stash, and sock yarn is good for this kind of projects, because I don't make socks from thin sock yarn that is 4-ply. I don't like to make them for 4-ply because you need really tight tension and I knit loosely. So all of the things that I showed you here before, these are 6-ply, 6-ply and 8-ply. So, and I knit with the 2mm with the 8-ply to get a nice fabric. So I use my thinner sock yarn to make cardigans in Tunisian crochet, or shawls in this case, or other things that do not need super tight tension. So this is a garter lace, which means that every row is knit, which is more difficult for me than if it were a regular lace with stockinette. So you would purl every second row when working flat. But look, it's pretty. It looks almost the same as regular lace. And yeah, it's my first half-ply shawl, and it's an interesting construction, and I want to try it on with Tunisian crochet. And I have the perfect yarn for that. I will show you my yarn haul now. Because it's one of the dreams. So this is my my Christmas present for myself. Don't judge, okay? So I bought this gorgeous purple merino and silk blend. It's a lace weight. So I was thinking of creating something similar to this, but in Tunisian crochet, and with obviously Tunisian crochet lace and other motifs. Just the construction would be similar. You start from a few stitches and then you double them up, and then you keep working and then you double them up again, and that's the half-ply construction. You have to double them up and then work the same number of stitches, or in this case slightly fewer every row, until you need to increase again. So this is one of my fasten off yarn along projects, and I haven't finished it, and I will probably finish it this year. It took me a very long time to find some beads that work with this, and I found some rokai from it's called Itoshi bead, but I know they're made in the Czech Republic. I don't know why they're called like this, but this is a Japanese name, but they're made in the Czech Republic, so I don't know. They have nice uniform holes, so they're much easier to work with. All the beads, I have kilograms of beads, and none of them worked for this. So it took me a long time to get the beads, and then I didn't have time to work on it anymore. But I like it. It's a pretty meditative for the most part, except for where you need to add the beads. That's complicated, but it can be done. So I will continue to work on it when I have time. And I have another fasten off yarn log project. When I saw this beautiful fabric, I said I have to learn how to make it, and turns out it's a triangle shawl. I don't like triangle shawls, but maybe with knitting I can make it more of a crescent shape when I block it. And I used my bamboo needles, which are fixed. So this is also quite short, and I will switch to some interchangeables because I bought some 3mm interchangeable needles on my trip north. And yeah, I will use one of the longer cords like I showed you with the other one. This one is also made on 3mm or 3.5. So this one is made on the 3.5. This one is made on 3mm needles, with the yarn that was left over from the pink macaw wings shawl that I created. So based on the pattern, it should be enough to make the whole shawl, because this lace grows a lot. So it will be a quite small but cute shawl. It's work like you wear it like this. But I can't show you the whole thing because my cable is too short. So I made the main pattern, several times, and then when I'm finished with this yarn, I will switch to the second stitch pattern, which should be much easier to make. This one was quite complicated, but it was also fun. So hopefully in the next episode I will show you the finished shawl. Now I brought some yarns here. These are my souvenir yarns from the north, and also my what I call my Christmas present. So this is alpaca socks yarn. Of course, I'm not going to make socks with alpaca yarn. They're 70% alpaca and 30% polyamide, which should make the yarn stronger to be worn as socks, but I don't think that's enough. Anyway, it's a very soft yarn, and I intend on making a beret and maybe a small scarf with this. I like it a lot. It's very soft. And this is a 8-ply sock yarn, just a very basic color. And I want to make a hat with this, top down. I think I will have to think more about that. This one I showed you already. I bought this in Coburg in November, and yeah, I've been drooling all over it. It reminds me very much of a purple that you can get from Orchel dyes, so you can look that up if you're interested. And 2 more sock yarns from the yarn dyer from Erfurt. We went there for the Christmas market and for voting. We had to go every weekend. We had to go to Erfurt for several weekends in a row to vote. And on one of them I visited the yarn shop, and I think you know that I already have 2 designs out there from this yarn. One from this year was the Rusty Beach cowl, the one with the orange, and this Tweedy yarn base, and the other one is the Wild Violets cowl and the variegated purple on this base. So yeah, I saved the label inside. It's Christiane Polnor on Marktstrasse 34. She has a small yarn shop there, and she sells her hand-dyed wool, and I like to get myself at least one sock yarn every year, and last year I didn't do it, so this is for last year. Well, this is for 2023 and 2024, and I intend on making hats from these. This one will be a cat ear beanie, sideways worked with ribbing in Tunisian crochet, and this one will be a ribbed beanie, all ribbed all around. So these are the plans for them. And usually I use about 70 grams of yarn per hat, so these should be enough for the hat. This one will use up the whole cake of yarn because you have extra fabric for the ears. Now I will show you upstairs my planning for the year 2025 and how I managed to my system. I created a system so that I can keep track of what I'm making, so that I prevent burnout, and that I always know what I need to do on a specific week. And I will share more with that when we get there. If you're not interested in planning for the year, just skip this section. But if you wanted to see the cardigan, here it is. I will keep these attached until I write up the pattern. As you know, if you've been following me for a while, it's very difficult for me to plan what I'm going to make and to stick to the plan. So for this year, I bought a whiteboard, secondhand, don't worry, and a lot of post-its and bits of paper and magnets. And I created a year-long plan for what I'm going to do, and hopefully this will keep me on track and it will prevent burnout. If you look at each month, you will notice that there are only 4 weeks in the month. In reality, we have more than 4 weeks, but this is a good system to prevent overwhelm. If I were to micromanage and assign tasks for each actual week of the year, then there will be no space for a bit of variation. So now we are in the second productive week of January, because in the first one I was on vacation. So last week I created the video and blog tutorial for lining a beadie, and this week I'm making the vlog, and I'm working on a pattern, and I'm working on a project which I haven't shown you because it's a January project, so I will show you in the next vlog. And it's also wet and drying, so I'm not even sure if I will keep it as it is or completely start from scratch. You will notice that I have a legend for each color on this section, and I have another legend there for the magnet colors. So the yellow means finish up the project first. The green means that I can, or I should publish, but only when it's over a yellow piece of paper. So the post-its don't want to stick to the whiteboard, so I had to put pins on them, otherwise they would just be like this. But the magnets are important when they're on one of these. The blue means that I need to write the pattern because I already have the sample, and the purple means that I am working on the sample, like we see here and there, and so on. Some are just in the state of idea. For example, one Tunisian crochet scarf with chunky yarn. I bought the yarn, I didn't have time to make the scarf, so it's going to happen in winter. So first I wrote up all of my works in progress on these yellow papers, and then I spread them out over the year. And the blue post-its are for blog posts and videos. As you can see here, they're together. So when I make a video, I will also make a tutorial on the blog. And there are some weeks which are empty, which is good because I need to do some research on keywords that I should create content for to increase the viewership of my blog. And there are also vacation spots which I set up so that I would not burn myself out and that I would not have tasks for those weeks. Just ensure that those weeks are free, no tasks. Okay, what else? On the edge there you will see that there's a bunch of sketches, and that's the big project that I will maybe talk more about in the future. And this one belongs to that group, and once I finish it, it will go back in there and I will pick out another one to work on. So the magic thing about this system is that you can move things around. If I don't feel like working on this week, I can just move it to the next week and no harm done. The point is to not overwhelm myself. So if there are 2 things in the same week, they're usually the same project. So the thing is that I can move things around. I will keep the vacations in place, but everything else can be moved. They don't have a high priority or anything like that. I will try to work on what is written on that specific week. If I cannot, then I will just pick another one and then switch them up. So it's good that I can see them all at the same time, and if I get new ideas, I can add them in the empty spaces, or I can put them here where they will live until next year's plan, and so on. So this is supposed to be a dynamic system which allows for the creation of a lot of patterns and also not overwhelming. If you notice, there is no vlog in February because there are just 4 weeks and I have 3 videos in there. So since we're in the middle of January now, it would be weird to make a video at the beginning of February. So there will be a vlog episode in the beginning of March about what I've done in January and February. And then, I don't know, I haven't planned the vlog that far in advance. But the point is that a lot of stuff that is halfway done is now up on the board, and I can just mark it off when I'm finished with it, and there's no more pressure. That pressure of, I have to do this, I have to finish this, I have to make this right now, or else I will forget about it. Because now it's on the board, so I will not forget about it, even if I don't see it for a couple of weeks. So that's my system. If it helps you to set up a similar system, go for it. These are very affordable. I think it was €8 a pack, and there are 80 pieces in there. So I bought 2 just to have enough. And as you can see, I created the color code, and I have one more thing to share. This is a part of a future spinning wheel that my hubby is building, and I'm very proud of him for doing this. This is 3D printed in 2 colors, as you can see. And this is just a wheel that will drive the flyer on top of it. And it will be a simple system with 1 pedal. So this is a work in progress. Maybe in the next vlog I will show you some yarn that I made on it. We still need to buy a lot of hardware to make it, but most of the 3D printed bits are done. So I hope that this system will help you set up your own, or maybe just give you some insight into how my brain works, and what all of this was inside here for most of the last year, because I started many of these last year, some of them 5 years ago, so now it's all there, so it can just stop living in my head rent-free, as they say. I thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and please let me know in the comments what you have been working on and what you plan on making in 2025. If you like my system, if you want to incorporate some of it into your own life, let me know in the comments. And take care. I will see you soon in another episode or in a tutorial. Bye.